I think gold sub is generally pretty neutral on this patch, compared to previous ones.
Yeah, because you can go so many different directions.
Yeah, it's just more so there aren't any comps that are like super low capped and don't use like the extra gold very well. Like previously, it was basically like you pretty much don't really want to play cog or you want to angle away from cog.
Mhm.
In gold sub because it didn't really have like a great use for gold after kind of hitting your units. Um, but now there isn't really like the current cog comp definitely can use more gold and caps out very high. And then basically all the comps you can play kind of cap out really high around the same sort of units.
Hmm. So here, fortune at this point with the nerf, you like can't take it if anybody
I
else
would
takes
just re-roll
like
it.
okay, unless you.
It. Sorry,
Mhm.
go ahead.
I was gonna say unless you like have literally no direction and you're very confident that the rest of the lobby is weak
Yeah,
or
I
sorry
would say
strong.
what doesn't kill you is probably just a better version of Fortune as well. So like post nerfs, like there's pretty much no reason to ever click it when you basically have Fortune Plus on the right side. Um,
Hmm.
Granted, none of these options are very good. I don't know off the top of my head, but I would assume they're all pretty much like Fortune's probably like a 4.8, and the other two are around 4.5.
Yeah.
Um, and your spot is pretty neutral for all of them. Like I think your board is okay, and like you probably would be able to make a streak board, but I would definitely reroll Fortune and probably reroll what doesn't kill you. The problem is it's also triple econ augment in gold sub, which again is like slightly less value. But
Mm.
I this would be like a spot where you want to scout because Pilfer is potentially good. If for some reason you see a lot of people with Lilia on their front line, like you can try because getting Lilia 2 here, your board is becomes a lot stronger. Also,
Mm.
when you're getting 3 cost orbs, right? Sometimes you'll see people with 3 costs on their board, and then Pilfer also goes up in value. But yeah, Fortune is just really bad right now. Also, the tie bug is extremely bad for Fortune. Um, because
Oh.
you can't. There's some games where you'll actually get to, like your win out spot with your huge Fortune cash out, and then you'll lose to tie bug. Um, so yeah,
Is the
I would
tie
just
bug
really avoid
predictable?
clicking. No, it's no. They no one knows what causes. At least no one publicly. Maybe someone's saving like their secret knowledge for tournament, and they know what causes it. But Riot doesn't know what causes it. At least publicly, like they ask for videos and things so that they can kind of try and figure out what's going on. And I think they're trying to patch it before the tournament. And then no one else has publicly stated that they know what's going on.
Okay.
But yeah, I would think I would probably reroll left and right and begrudgingly take Pilfer. I mean, you saw a Hecarim on someone's board, so
Yeah,
okay.
there's Hecarim and then a bunch of two costs in
I mean,
front
now I would
lines.
definitely just take Slight. Okay, so you go for what doesn't kill you, and you you kind of end up playing your. I mean, this is definitely
That's
a
too
mistake, right?
strong.
Your board is too
Yeah.
strong. Um, well, did get unlucky that you crit the auto there, but yeah, like, I mean I think you're just running low on time, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, this happens to me a lot where I take too long on the augment selection and then I don't make the optimal decision after augment selection.
yeah, I mean, there's also some where you kind of have to know that like if you're willing to take what doesn't kill you here, you have to kind of just be ready to like instant start selling your board as soon as you click it, right? Like you just kind of have
Hmm.
to mentally be ready when you're thinking about your arguments. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're playing what doesn't kill you win streak now, so I mean, this is already going very wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
sleight of hand here is looking pretty good, and then you actually hit your entire board. So now
Yeah.
it looks like you're probably gonna either be down an augment for the whole stage, or your augment's gonna be 2 gold. Um, and I guess you kind of decided at this point to play for win streak. I mean, it makes sense now. Like you might as well play for win streak. And then I think if I
Yeah.
lose 2-5, I would just kind of like play sack and just play a weaker board. Just because
Hmm.
once you lose your streak at that point, like you'd rather have the you. It's actually a lot of gold to lose if you already lose your streak.
Yeah.
Um, Nashers.
So I was thinking at this point, like with Shoja, I'd probably lean towards like Rise or Karma. So then I was like, oh, maybe I should just uh, greed for some type of red buff or Morello.
I
Like
mean, yeah, I wouldn't slam unless it looks like it makes a fight diff.
the
Um,
problem is it does
the
make a
problem
fight
is it
tip
looks like it
here.
makes a fight diff. Yeah, you also get really like to be honest, like both of these fights you get punished on. The fight order is really bad, but also like easily avoidable punishes, right? Like Nashor Slam is easily avoidable punish, and then obviously not playing like that strong of a board.
Yeah.
And here I you really need to look to lose this round. Um,
Okay.
because like something you should always do for like these spots like pre Krugs or when you're kind of debating whether you need to make interest or not, like you should just do the math in your head of like how much gold it is. I mean
Uh-huh.
here you gain 1 gold for winning, but you lose the 2 gold from what doesn't kill you. You lose 2 gold from the loss streak as well. So you lose 3 gold total for winning this round. And then the
Right.
other downside is now you actually can't play for like if you lose there, you can just play for win streak for stage 3, right? And then 3 win into 8 loss or whatever, and then you 4-1, and your spot is actually not terrible. If you
Mm.
just play it as like 3 win, and then you just start your loss streak on 2-5 after you lose that round. I don't think your spot would be that bad. You just lose into 4-1 and then send it for it looks like probably Rise, but maybe I mean you're kind of open to whatever here, right? Rise or Karma, the items
Hmm.
are fine for either, but you should really just be playing for the loss streak there because yeah, um like this win loss win is really really bad when you have what doesn't kill you or like something that incentivizes you heavily to streak one way or the other way.
Right.
Um like generally it's bad, but if you have like a normal combat or if you have just like a generic econ like slamming or cluttered mine or whatever, it's not nearly as bad. But this is like you're losing your augment value and you're not streaking, so you're down a gold augment and you're not streaking. um it's just not a great spot to be in.
Okay. So it would have been just safer if, assuming I was low on time, to just full sell board if I didn't have time to scout.
Yeah, well, I mean, what doesn't kill you can always just full sell board. Like
Yeah.
there's never anything wrong with full selling on augments that heavily incentivize you to lose. Um, because most of the time with what doesn't kill you, or no, I shouldn't say most of the time, but a lot of the time, like you probably have to full sell or be playing a board that kills 0 units anyways.
Hmm.
Later in stage 2 to guarantee your loss. Like when you're on 3 loss or 4 loss, you either have to full sell your board or play a board that's so weak that you're not killing any units anyways. Um, just to try and guarantee your loss streak because losing the streak is so bad. So
Yeah.
yeah, like in your head, if you're taking what doesn't kill you or fortune and you're kind of low on time and don't know like exactly where your units are that you want to put on your board, I would just lean to just clicking E on everything as fast as you can and just kind of trying to get um sell your board and make 10. I mean, you should always make 10 with a loss streak augment on 2-1, but like yeah, obviously sometimes if you're playing perfectly, you want to hold like Zoe pair or something to try
Hmm.
and make your stage 3 a little more smooth, but most of the time just be prepared to full sell.
Okay. So
I
augments
think
here, these are
these are
all
all
pretty bad.
trash.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I mean, I think you should probably hold Dragon Spirit over the other two, but like they're honestly all just terrible. I just triple reroll and not really think about it that much. Uh, yeah,
For some
I
reason, I decided to take this because, oh, I think it
yeah
was because I was like, I'm on a lose streak anyway, so I could just take the time to get the gold, and then I can hopefully hit everything on eight.
yeah. I mean, you're basically triple econ at this point because it's gold sub, right? So you're sitting
Yeah.
here clicking a bunch of econ augments. Your board is just gonna be really weak when you hit. Um,
Mm.
if I had to guess your placement from this spot, it would probably be 7. But like there is I mean, this spot is just very, very hard to like place in the top four. Um, but it's also kind of hard to go eighth because usually you'll hit your units, and then
Hmm.
like there'll probably be someone low rolling more than you. But you really should be. I mean, taking combat here, right? Even though replication is very mediocre, like there is one
Yeah.
bailout. Like if you replicate a rod here, your spots are
Hmm.
looking a lot better, right? Because then you can either play Rise or Karma. Like you have your Morello, and then you have Death Cap for like secondary carry. Whatever you want a secondary in Rise or Karma, whether it's like Nami, Gwen. Yeah, but here you're kind of ending up in a spot where your main out from the spot is either going fast nine and like hitting a crap ton of gold on wolves and just going fast nine and playing for Zerath, which is I don't think you're rich enough to play for that, or you pray that you hit like the Rise 2 or Karma 2 extremely quickly and then are
Hmm.
able to use that to go 9. Like if you're level 830 with Rise 2 and you make it to 9, you can probably top 4.
If I had taken replication, I was thinking like rod would be the best, but if I didn't hit rod, like bow would not be good, right? Because I already have. Oh no, bow is actually okay because
Um
I don't have a red buff.
Bow's okay. Like you can make red
Vest.
GS. It's not great. Vest is terrible. I never take Vest off replication. Like literally never take Vest off replication unless it's an actual 7 AD lobby. If there are 7
Uh,
people playing AD, Bramble Vest actually becomes a good item, and then you can take Chain. But
okay.
outside of that, I would just never take Chain, never take Cloak off
Sword.
replication. Sword is fine here, but you will probably end up in a line you're not comfortable with. Um,
Uh,
but like if you had the thing is, Sword here just makes BT Sterax, so you're just going to be
yeah.
playing like probably
Fiora
some sort
or
of Olaf flex
Olaf.
board. Um, I think Olaf is just better than Fiora right now.
Really?
So
Oh.
yeah, um, you'll probably end up in. I mean, you'll end up in either one of them, right? You probably won't have the opportunity to be picky, but so it depends how comfortable you are playing like AP backline, AD frontline, which I think is generally better suited for Karma. But again, your spot is kind of one where once I take what doesn't kill you and I'm playing like win loss, no streak. I'm kind of trying to play for like a fifth or a sixth. So
Hmm.
it would just be like replication. If I end up with sword here, I'm just gonna play whatever 2-star forecast I hit backline and whatever 2-star forecast I hit frontline, and that
Right.
would kind of just be my plan if I hit sword, and then belt is probably somewhat acceptable. Somewhat. It's more slightly more acceptable than cloak and chain, and then tier is okay as well because tier makes a bunch of frontline items.
Okay.
And you could also just go blue buff Shojin Karma, which is not optimal, but
Hmm.
ideally it'd be like blue buff Karma and then Shojin Milio is
Right.
ideally what would happen if you take tier. But yeah, I mean
Okay. So
explosive
priority
growth
would
is
be
just
rod, then tier, then sword.
it really depends how comfortable you are playing like the sword lines. From like a perfect perspective, I think that's correct. Like it would be rod and then tier and then sword. And then
Okay.
you basically just never want to take tank from replication if you can help it because tank items are pretty weak right now, and then tanks are also pretty weak right outside of Fairy Rukon.
Hmm. The vertical fairy where he has the crown.
Yeah, the where he has the shield item.
Okay.
But yeah, basically if you end up taking like no combat, you're going to need like the board you're going to need to make is going to be extremely strong in order for you to win any of your rounds later in the game.
Right.
And also, although we're still win loss, which is
Should
just
I
like
not have slammed the BT
yeah,
there?
I would never slam BT there. You would much prefer to just lose this stage, just because you can't
Even
actually streak.
uh even though I'm
Um,
already gonna be pretty gold like rich, so I was like thinking because I'm probably gonna have a lot of gold, I could just preserve HP.
well, the other thing about it is you're kind of components dependent right now as well. Um,
Hmm.
so like obviously like there's never such a thing as too much gold, like you get components from what doesn't kill you, which you kind of need, and then you also need rod priority here. Um,
Yeah.
okay, obviously the guy takes the first pick, so you wouldn't get the rod either way, but your your spot is just not looking like if you don't get any rods here off of wolves, your spot is going to be really hard to play because you just won't have any damage on your backliner.
Hmm.
And then also like realistically, this board is probably not going to streak stage 3. Um, so like I would just be expecting to lose the other rounds. So if I fight someone weak, my thought process wouldn't be, oh, I'm trying to beat them and like save HP. It would just be like, this is the one weak guy, and like the one guy I could probably beat on my terrible board, and I would probably prefer to just play for 5 loss here, and then
Hmm.
4-1, and make a board strong enough to win, 4 or 5 rounds on stage 4, and then accept that because I'm kind of double econ, it's gold subscription. I'm like my items are pretty mediocre. Kind of accept the fact that I'm um not going to win that many rounds on stage 5 unless I get lucky matchmaking or someone else makes mistakes. Also, I wasn't checking the damage charts too closely, but I think Crown was probably supposed to be on our Seraphine earlier, like when you
Oh
made the
yeah.
Shojin and Shiv. Um, Katarina is a really good unit, so like I wouldn't have actually been that surprised if Katarina was actually better with the crown holder, but um it should just be something that you're paying attention to. Again, like I wasn't paying enough attention to see what was doing more, but it's very likely that it should have been on
Hmm.
Seraphine. And then you kind of
See,
end up in the spot I was talking about. I mean, obviously these items are very unfortunate that you get dropped um
yeah,
these items, but like you without Rod here, it's just very hard to play the game. Um,
right. Or bow.
yeah, well, no anti heal, and then like you probably have to make Sterak's here or DB. Um, that probably
Is
depends on what pick you are, whether you can make Sterak's or not. Um, because like if you're an earlier pick, you're more likely to be able to get bow off carousel, right?
right,
And Sterak's is probably a better item.
right.
Also, I think Wei One is actually probably okay here. I would actually you don't have a rod to lock anyways. I would consider either locking the salvager or just using the salvager. And the reason for that is you can actually play Callista from here, and it would just lock salvager for 1 turn in case you get like fairy crest, right? Or
Uh,
whatever the fairy augment. I forgot. It's Queen's Guard, I think. Um, but you already have like the setup. You're pretty much set up to play fairy, except for the fact that your items are really bad for Callista, right? Um,
right.
I mean, obviously, if you salvager, you still don't have a rage blade, which really sucks. But you can kind of make like, you can make GS and just have open bow, and then use tier item for Rakan. And Heelka is not as important in fairy, um, because you kind of have like
Katarina.
Callista eventually kills everything, and you have Katarina as well. Um,
Hmm.
so that's kind of the main out I would be looking for. It would be like Salvager here, make Redemption Rakan, and then GS Callista. If I hit something that allows me to play it, um, I would also be willing to, even on a mediocre augment, just take Salvager and then salvage off the items for my Seraphine, and then do my roll down first, and be willing to hold Callista. So like you salvager the Seraphine, leave the items on bench here, and then you start rolling, and if you hit Callista 2, like you're willing to hold the units here, and then Callista 2 is Callista 2, right? You make it, and then you use the salvager to make your Callista items, and then pray you get a rod at some point. And that's kind of the out
Hmm.
I would be really looking for here, because just because of the way your items are, you're super far away from like any rise or karma board, right? You pretty much have to like full pivot, um, which is, I mean, it's doable, but it's like my items are really screaming. I don't want to play karma or rise either, right? So
Yeah.
I would definitely be thinking about fairy here, and I at least have the salvager option open. in case you want to play something else, just so that
Okay,
yeah. The only
that makes a
problem
lot of
with this
sense.
plan is specifically because you said like usually it takes you a while to pick augments. If you spend a lot of time picking your augment and trying to do the salvager turn, you are definitely going to end up with like a really bad board. Because it's a very
Yeah,
like the item lock thing
and
is very annoying to deal with, and you'll probably just lose the next round for free. But
yeah, and I
like
a
if
lot of times on salvaging, I like end up with extra components that are in an orb, and I get fucked
yeah,
on
yeah,
time
that's
on
the
that.
item lock thing. It's just I've heard a lot of people have been complaining about it recently, so maybe they change it. I'm not really sure why it's a thing in the first place. To be completely honest, it seems
Mhm.
a little bit strange just from a design standpoint. But anyway,
Okay,
um,
what's your thought on if I had more time rolling down my gold on 4-1
yeah,
just to
I
be
would
able to hit forecast before everybody else?
yeah, I think you should be rolling here.
Okay.
Like
In which
assuming
case, if I could have done it fast enough, I could have done the salvager and the rolling this
yeah,
turn and not have had to lock.
yeah, like if
Although I
you're
guess that doesn't let me get fairy emblem like to know direction before I roll up from the augment.
well, I would just be so like in a perfect world, right? I would just click Salvager here, like infinite time. I would roll relatively deep, maybe to like 30 or 40, um, and just be open to hold like the Callistas and kind of just try. If I get bench locked, I would just mainly focus on holding like the forecast that I can potentially play around. Um,
Hmm.
Callista, Karma, Olaf, Rise, and just seeing like what I'm closest to. Obviously, you can slot recon into any of those boards, so you can just end recons on your board. I would also be willing to like play a weaker board. I mean, you have Magen, which you don't want to have tailored because you don't want to see Mage Spat here.
Mm,
Warrior Spat is fine because 6 Warriors is actually really broken. Um, so it would just be like take the mages out and then put like the random forecast on your board while rolling. So like put a Karma on your board, put a Rise on your board, so you have more bench space, and then just kind of see what your roll down looks like after you roll to 30, and then after you see your augment, you can kind of decide what you want to do um, with the items on your bench. And I think Bramble probably always gets made. I saw a lot of AD in this lobby, so Bramble actually looks okay. And then you
mhm.
don't really have use for 2 chains, so that saves you from getting bench locked. Or not bench locked, item locked. But
Right.
I think that's what like the theoretically optimal turn would look like. But I don't get me wrong, I don't think any current TFT player is capable of playing that turn. Um,
Okay.
Most people would probably just either skip Salvager and just roll down and like praying for Karma or Rise, or they would just click Salvager and then be thinking a bit too much about like how to not get item locked, or they would just lock it and do the whole thing the next turn after they see augments.
Okay.
Okay, you should never really slam here. Because you're probably losing the fight anyways, and like
Hmm.
slamming before you kind of like roll down all of your gold and click your augment is very bad unless it's like 100 million% sure you are always playing the item. I would say GS is not in the category of 100 million% sure you're always gonna make GS. Um,
I see.
so yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I think there's plenty of worlds here where you hit like an Olaf 2 and you would prefer to make Sterax because you need to hold anti-heal component open, so you either want open belt or open bow. Just because most of the comps in the game you can't play without anti-heal. And for
Mm.
example, like if you roll down here, 20 gold, you somehow hit like Olaf 2, and you're playing like Diana Zillion, Olaf 2, like Preserver Olaf to try and get to 9. You probably would not want the GS and you'd probably prefer Sterax open bow. But
I see. Okay. And I got screwed here with the mage crown because that was tailored, right?
yeah, because you have mages in. And like yeah,
Okay.
Fairy Crown here would be like the out that you're looking for. But again, GS is also bad for that because now you just killed your Rage Blade, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
if you end up
Okay.
playing Fairy here, like like normally the Shojin and Shiv are dead, but if you do find Emilio, right, your game is kind of saved. Where like you can definitely
Mhm.
salvage a decent placement with Milio, and then Callista 2 out of thin air, Rakan 2 out of thin air. All of a sudden we're going top three, right? Um, but like now you have GS Slam, the fairy out is not really as viable because you have no part of a Rage Blade. Um,
Mhm.
and your spot is just really, really, really awkward now that we got here. I mean, you can't click A, you can't click Mage Crown, so like it's pretty standard what you have to do. But you also don't want to click Toolbox either. Um, Here I'd actually probably take Call of Chaos and just start praying I get XP or gold and can go 9. It can just go fast 9 and then like
Uh,
spawn um kind of play for like Briar 2 Xerath 2. I think it's actually probably the best way to get out of this. I think this is Call of Chaos not close, to be honest. I mean, you have no TGs for
really?
Lucky Gloves.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
the problem with Roll the Dice for me here is you're kind of not. I just don't think your board will be strong enough to play like a roll the dice level 8 board and win rounds. Unless it's roll
Mm.
the dice on a 2-star legendary. But I think if you hit a 2-star 4 cost here, the roll the dice just won't be good enough considering that you don't have you don't have any other combats, and it's also gold sub, so people will be stronger than normal. Um yeah, I would definitely just take Call of Chaos here and kind of be praying to make like a level 9 Briar 2 Xerath 2 board on 4-5, and then just I mean, if you hit like the miracle roll, then you could probably go first or top 2 off this Call to Chaos, assuming obviously you get XP or rolls or gold. If you get
Do you
5
know what the
emblems
odds
here,
are for one of those three?
I think it's 50-50. I believe there's 6
Oh,
outcomes.
oh, really? So it's 50-50 that I could apply, like basically go fast nine. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, because there's the options are 45, 50 gold, I think. 60 XP and 40 rolls. There's three, and then the Zeke's dummy. Oh, it's not 50-50. It's 3 out of 8. So it's 37.5. Because there's
A
8
free
options.
roll one, would I still greed fast nine?
I think I would because it's 40 rolls. Um,
Hmm.
it's hard to say. I mean, the other thing is like you can just use the 40 rolls on 8, right, and go 9 after. Um, You're 56 gold if I remember correctly, and then you lost last round, so you're probably 70 gold here.
With 40 rolls, I could also
Um,
go for like a 3-star 4 cost, right?
you could, but the bag size changes make that kind of hard, and I think it's like a
Yeah.
pretty unrealistic out. I think you're right though. Maybe 40 rolls you're probably just supposed to roll on 8 a bit, and then try 9 on 5-1 depending on what your rolls end up giving you. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, if you use like 20 of the rolls and then you have 5 rises, like, and no one else was playing rise, that's definitely an option. But I think it's definitely called a chaos here. It's either 3 out of 8
Okay.
or 3 out of 9. Um, but either way, it's still I don't really. I mean, it's definitely not lucky gloves. Like
Yeah.
it's without a doubt not lucky gloves. The argument for roll the dice would be that you're very like the odds of you hitting a 2-star melee forecast that can hold roll the dice are extremely high. But
Yeah.
the problem for me is you also have Bloodthirster, and I just don't think your board will be that strong. So, like your Bloodthirster slash whatever the second sword becomes will probably be your melee items. So you just don't. It just feels awkward to me, and I think Call of Chaos is like the main out here that you're trying to like how you're trying to salvage a top 4.
Okay. That makes sense. Like picking roll the dice would be like preventing, maybe it'd be preventing a seventh or eighth, but yeah, my cap is like a fifth or something, whereas Call to Chaos increases the variance, maybe gives me top three potential, but also could increase my eighth potential.
um to be
But
honest,
AVP
like
might be just higher.
I actually think Call of Chaos AVP is like so much higher than the variance change for roll the dice because the if you think about the options, okay, there are two options that are very terrible, right? 3-star 3 cost is terrible here. Like you lose, like it's by far worse than roll the dice. So that's the
Mm,
worst one. And then the second worst one is the random emblems. Um 5 random emblems, but they're there actually are a decent amount of random emblems you can use just because you're not really committed to anything yet. Your items are kind of up in the air, and it can kind of help you. It can actually help you with this roll down, especially since you kind of get dizzy a lot. I think the
Yeah.
emblems would actually help you roll because you have a lot of gold here, and it'll make it so that you don't have to. You won't get stuck in the spot where you're holding like too many outs on your bench, and which causes you to like roll slower because you have to think about what you're selling on your bench to make room, whatever. But
Mm.
obviously, it's still probably worse on average than roll a dice. And then both the dummies are better. Like the locket and the Zeeks, double locket, double Zeeks are both stronger than roll the dice on average. Triple Hall Crusher is also stronger than roll the dice on average, I would say. I mean, some people might argue it's not. And I think triple snipers is probably slightly weaker. And then the other three are all fast nines. So I think Call of Chaos is just better on average, and there's only one really really bad Call of Chaos you can get here. And then
Okay.
I just don't see how roll the dice here ever top fours unless you hit a Diana 2 or a Briar 2 um
Mm.
to
Okay.
hold it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also like before you roll, usually you should just kind of clean up like the units that you don't want on your board. Um,
Mm.
so if you're holding this Nami out, I mean I think I wouldn't hold it just because it makes the transition very awkward because you have to that means you have to hold the mages on your board. And you
Yeah.
just have less bench space. But normally I would just put like Rakan Zillion on my board instead of like this Vex and Galio. Um, I guess after you slam the GS, you probably can't really play Fairy either, so I would just get rid of the fairies and then just play like the Preservers, which are always on my board, and then
Mm.
maybe then you can hold the mage out, and like the Preservers plus like once I get this Camille, just put the Camille on my board. Just like the units that you're kind of never selling, and just like sell the fairies that will never be here. Just because like as you see when you're rolling, right, your bench is full. You kind of have to think a little bit longer about like what you're selling and what units you don't want to keep.
Yeah.
And as you can see, right, you're like 20 gold, 6 seconds left. Like there's no way you actually complete this roll down successfully from the spot, and it's it's definitely something that you should start doing on your roll down so that it's more that this doesn't happen as often to you where
Okay.
like these fairies, there's even a chance that these fairies end up staying on your board after the round starts, which is also very bad, right? Because like your strongest board here would just be the Preservers plus Camille holding the BT. Or I guess it would probably be
Yeah.
like Camille holding the Radiant TG and then BT on like Nico. But yeah, like the just get ready to like sell the units that will never be on your board on 4-2 when you're about to make like these full board transitions, and it'll just make it easier for you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I think part of it was I was low on time because I took too much on the augment selection.
Yeah, it's definitely somewhat. And then oh wait, you also like you can't slam the Sterex. Um,
Right,
you,
because I
you
need
just need
anti-heal.
anti-heal to play the game, right? Like you kill your anti-heal component, especially because it's Sterex on a cat 1, right?
Yeah.
If this was Sterex on an Olaf 2, fine. Like Sterex on an Olaf 2, like you're at this point you kind of realize like you're playing for like 6th or 7th. Like you're almost never top 4ing from this spot, like after this roll down. Um, unless you pull like the Christmas Miracle Briar 2 out of a hat, right? So
Mm.
like if this was on an Olaf 2, it's completely fine. Like slam all your items, just try and win the round. But just because it's on like a cat 1 and you're killing your anti-heal component to make a subpar item that, well, it's not a subpar item, but like it's a subpar item on Katarina that probably didn't kill any more units, right? And it's
Right.
like kind of the same thing as the GS earlier. Like you're kind of closing your outs without actually gaining much value from it. Just because you have like the
Mm.
stigma of like you should be slamming items, right? You're slamming a GS because you're thinking like, oh, like you've been told like that's kind of the way most people learn to play the game, right? They're not slamming enough items, so people tell them to like slam everything. But
Yeah.
the GS killed 0 units that one fight with the Seraphine, and it killed your potential Callista out, right? The Callista out might not have happened this game, but you should always kind of just leave them open instead of making these kind of weird slams. And the Sterak's Katarina obviously also killed 0 items and kills your potential anti-heal, which might actually end up costing you a placement later down the road.
Right. Is there a world that would have made sense to slam? I mean, I know this is hindsight, but like instead of slamming the Bramble, slamming
Some Sunfire.
Sunfire.
Um,
Although I would have an extra vest, I guess that would become edge of
maybe
night. Maybe.
the thing is like, yeah, the items are just not great. I mean, Edge of Night is not a very good item, and neither is Sunfire, especially on stage 4. Like I think Sunfire stage 2 is very underslammed, because people think it's just a trash item. I don't actually hate Sunfire that much. The main problem is just you have it doesn't leave you with good options either. And if you could choose, like, obviously post Carousel, everyone would choose Morello Bramble, and I think a lot of the time that's just what you're playing for. Versus, Sunfire Eon is not like you're essentially making like two very mediocre at best items instead of making Bramble, which is a mediocre item, and then not having anti-heal for 1 round. But the other thing is the Katarina is still on your board right now, right?
Yeah.
So you don't even need you don't actually even need the Sunfire. So even if you were going that route, I think it would even be better to just not slam the Sunfire at all. Like, if for some reason you thought Eon, if for some reason you were playing for Eon, which obviously I know that's not what you were, not why you brought it up, but you have the anti-kill right now, so there's no real reason to rush a Sunfire.
Okay.
And then we desperately need to start selling these fairies.
I was like, how do I do this?
Yeah, you just get too stuck on the fairy package for some reason here. But yeah, like the cat just needs to go out for Camille here. Like you probably just need to play Camille, Callista, Akali.
Yeah.
Instead
I got there eventually.
Yeah. Oh, Rod Nora. I mean,
that would have been the
kind of see. Yeah, you can kind of see we miss Morello to slam Sterak's Katarina 1. And, it even ends up being on the perfect unit where you can actually just play it on your board.
I didn't Yumi the Nami either.
Yeah, you didn't Yumi the Nami, and
all these fights were so close too in stage 4.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably a Morello diff, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Another thing is synergy wise, you just have a random okay, that's fine. I would also say Camille doesn't really need multi-striker. It kind of needs multi-striker, but it's not really worth playing double reverse Fonda give multi-striker to your Camille 1.
I see.
I didn't check the damage chart, but I have a sneaking suspicion this Nami 2 is far out damaging on Camille 1. Obviously, it's last alive every fight, which is in part why you shouldn't really be playing synergies for your Camille 1, just because it's quite frankly just not doing that much. And if anything, it's probably would have been stronger to just put your items on Nasus here. And just BT stacks your Nasus because you're getting the free remover, right? And just play the preservers. And just play Preserver Nami.
Okay.
Okay, you get Morello here.
Morello.
I think I'd probably go TG. I mean, if you're attached to playing this multi-package, it's definitely TG. And then you just TG your Callista. Alternatively, you could Radiant TG your Callista, but the only problem with that is there actually are pretty much 0 good rules on Radiant TG for backline units. Right, because most of them are just frontline. But I think I would probably go Morello TG. and then Morello my
Okay.
Nami and uh
Because
yeah,
then
I'd
I have
probably
a
Morello Nami
GS,
and move Shiv.
a move Shiv.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
And then,
I think the reason I would want Morello on my Nami is I don't think your Nora casts fast enough to apply Morello very well. Um, or like if your Nora is not autoing the unit you want to anti-heal, I think the first Nora cast is probably coming in like 7 seconds into the fight. So
mhm.
it's just getting there a little bit too late. Um, but in an ideal world, Shiv is more stats than Morello on your Nami, or it's like better stats. Um, so you would ideally want it on your Nami and Morello on something else, but I think you would need a mana item on your Nora to consider Morello Nora here.
Wouldn't you want three item? Oh, wouldn't you want three item Camille instead
As
of
opposed to TG Callista.
um as opposed to so it'd be like
You're proposing move GS to Camille?
yeah,
Um, I mean, I think your Nami is just like a much better unit than your Camille one is.
I see. So you just want to
That's like the
maximize Nami
crux of it.
first
So
and
I would just
then
want my Nami to do more damage. Again, like the your Camille one is probably just doing a lot of dying and not very much actual damage here. And so I would just prefer to have my Giant Slayer on Nami. Giant Slayer is also very good on AP. Well, it's not like it's good on AP now. Um, After the buffs, it pretty much ends up being Biss on every unit that's not like Six Blaster. And
hmm.
I just think your Camille is just gonna die in most of these fights. I mean, your Camille one, like, no, you don't have Edge of Night. Um, so your Camille is probably like Camille one is probably just not tanky enough with BT Sterex to be kind of doing the like Camille go infinite. And then
Hmm.
yeah, I just think Nami's a much stronger unit here. I think if you wanted three item Camille, I would just go Hodge here and just play Hodge Camille, um,
Okay.
and just forgo the TG on my Callista because level 8 TG you can low roll, and then also obviously Callista's not a great TG holder, um,
Yeah. What
because there aren't
about
that many heroes.
GS and IE on Callista and then Morello on
No,
Nami?
you can't stack Callista without Rage Blade. It's like yeah.
Okay, so the
The
TG
Nami
on
is
because
much better than Callista without Rage Blade. Like much better.
okay, okay. So then I make another mistake here.
Oh, so you IE Callista, I'm assuming then? Oh, Salvager. Wait a second. We're back. Wait, Salvager. Hey! You can play Rage Blade Callista!
Yeah, so I figured that out and then I click it here. I didn't realize I thought
Oh,
it
it does,
applied
yeah,
next
it's
turn.
bugged. It's bugged. You have to lock Salvager.
So I
I mean,
click it
okay,
here and I was
to
like,
be
oh,
fair
I'm
to
ready to
you,
switch to Callista.
yeah, okay. To be fair to you, this is actually a good play and is like how like you would assume the game works, because that's how it works for everything else.
Yeah, I was like, what the
Um,
fuck?
so like to be completely fair, like then I don't think this is really your fault much at all, just because like that's how it works for every other charm. But yeah, specifically like it doesn't work on Callista, so or
Yeah.
not doesn't work on Callista. It doesn't work on Salvager.
Yeah.
Um,
So now I know I have to lock Salvager. I didn't know that
yeah,
before. I mean, this Callista's
very
doing
cool.
okay with GS.
I mean, your Camille's also doing the same
And the
damage as
Camille.
Nami.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just worried. The only reason I'm worried about it is just like a lot of these fights. I don't know how many of these fights your Camille is going to live the entire fight for.
Right.
Oh wait, this Briar needs to go in over Nico. Briar's
Oh,
a
okay.
really this Briar unit is really insane even after the nerfs, and it's just better. Briar one is just better than Nico two, especially with your Radiant TG roll did have a Radiant IE on it.
Oh.
Um,
So even with Witchcraft, it's just better.
yeah,
Like
Witchcraft is.
dropping
I mean,
Witchcraft.
if you think about what two Witchcraft is, late game it's 150 damage, basically. Like they
Uh-huh.
lose 150 health. and their witchcraft appliers actually don't really apply to their whole board anyways. Like your Nico
Right.
applies it to 3 units, and then you're playing Fiora 1. Honestly, this Fiora should also come off the board. Um, but yeah, like you don't have great witchcraft appliers anyways. Okay, here I would just move items. Oh, whoa, whoa,
I
whoa.
was just hoping I'd
I
get
move.
something better for Nami.
Yeah,
You wouldn't do that.
they buffed. They also, I mean, besides the open reforge, I would. I'm not sure why we're so stuck on this Fiora. I feel like this Fiora would have just um probably should just not be on our board. I don't
Uh-huh.
remember if we saw anything better. I guess it would probably just be Briar over it. But I definitely would
Right.
have sell. I would. The main thing is I would definitely sell my Fiora pair before I sell my Camille pair. Here was like the main thing that I was going to talk about.
Okay. So
Just
in the
because.
worst case, I could just play it at the extra Camille if I don't hit anything else.
Well, I mean, you don't. I mean, you can keep the Fiora on your board for now, right? You just sell your bench Fiora.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, why
Like,
did I?
just you
I sold
sold
my Camille.
Camille.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think it was because I was hoping that I would have a higher odds of hitting
of hitting
Fiora
Fiora.
2 over Camille 2, so then I can move these items over to Fiora if I happen to hit it on the last roll. But
Well,
do I even have enough gold for that?
I mean, you do have enough gold for that, like because you would just sell the Camille, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you're thinking to do that, you should also hold the Jacks. But I mean, this is the separate point. I think the main problem for me is I think you're overvaluing Fiora a lot. I actually think Camille 1 in this setup is probably as strong as Fiora 2. Um,
Oh.
I'm just a very big. Everyone that I'm. Okay, like I can't really leak too much tourney prep, but Fiora's just not a very good unit right now. Like it's all right. Like some games are playing Fiora 2, Fiora 2 is Fiora 2, but like this setup for Fiora you have here is not very good. Like you're 2 warrior and you don't have Preserver, which actually helps the Fiora out a lot. You're also not Vertical Witch. And you're playing all of Camille's synergies, right? Like you have 3 multi-striker. I mean, Chrono is like not really a Camille synergy at 2 Chrono, right? It gives like
Mhm.
15 AP, I think, to the Chrono units at 2 Chrono. But like you have multi-striker in, and I think Camille 2 is actually like your kind of out here to going top 4. Um,
Hmm.
like if you hit a Fiora 2 here, this board is still going 6th or 7th, in my opinion. Um, but if you hit a Camille 2 here, I actually think this board looks like it can top 4. From 2
Okay.
HP. And then also they buffed Nora and made her a lot stronger as a carry. So you should definitely move the Nami items to Nora here on Nora 2.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't reforge these items, you would just move from
Oh
Nami
yeah,
and just call it a day.
I actually don't hate the open reforge. Like I actually don't hate it that much.
Especially since
I,
I have two reforgers.
yeah, you have 2 reforgers and like low key there's a lot of outs actually. Because you'd rather have items on both Nora and Nami instead of like Fiora 1 or Camille 1. And then
Yeah.
if you pull a Rage Blade out of some of these reforgers, like you can play around your Callista as well. I actually think reforger is
And
pretty smart here.
and I have Nasus with like
Nasus with
slots for
one
tank
item. Yeah,
items.
there's essentially like no. I mean, obviously there's some misses. You also have a second reforger, as you said. Um, but I think reforger here makes a lot of sense to me. Open reforge.
Okay. The problem was I didn't realize I had two reforgers for some reason. So I
It'd
think
just
keep
be
the redemption,
reforge
right?
Gunblade Shiv. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing is you kind of run low on time because you spend too
Yeah,
much time debating the like Fiora Camille thing, I guess. We're figuring out
yeah.
what unit to sell. Um, and a lot of this just comes down to like pre-planning. You kind of just have to whenever like you have to start recognizing when you're in scenarios where this will happen a lot. And this is like
Mm,
you're low gold, right? You have like a bunch of upgrades you could potentially hit, and you have like a bunch of pairs on your bench. Is definitely one of them. You have to like be thinking to yourself before you actually do the turn. If I hit Fiora here, what am I gonna sell? If I hit Camille here, what am I gonna sell? If I hit Nora here, what am I gonna sell? So that you can make the decision when it actually happens. And it's the same thing on
mm,
4-2, right? Where you have to pre-plan, like you have to think about your outs. If I hit Fairy Crest here, like what's my board gonna be? if I hit combat caster here and I hit karmas, like how am I going to pivot to karma? Like if I hit nothing, just hit some generic augment on 4-2, like what am I going to sell before I start rolling? Because like what will I always keep on my board and what will never be on my board? And you kind of just have to start pre-planning these very common times, and these the ones that just happened this game are like the very normal ones that you should have down, right? Like low gold scenario, bunch of pairs, level 9, 1 life. You should always be pre-planning this. Like 4-2, a million gold, you're probably full pivoting off your board. You should also always be pre-planning that. And just kind of know like what you're going to play or what the plan is, so that you don't end up in all these scenarios where it's like, oh, you sack around for free because you didn't, get your board in properly. Oh, you sack around for free because you now you have 2 shivs and a gunblade and your items are stuck on Nami 2 instead of Nora 2, right? And so it just adds up over time. I mean, this game is like a very obvious kind of example of like, where it went wrong in terms of like you get obviously punished on 2-1 here because you didn't sell your board, right? You get obviously punished on, I mean, maybe on this turn, who knows? Maybe you win this fight anyways, right? But you could potentially get obviously punished here if you lose and go 7th in a fight that you could have won.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are like the scenarios where you just have to be pre-planning what you're going to do and thinking through it so that you can anticipate it when it actually happens.
Okay, so I should be reforging this and probably. So I think the item remover could be moving Nami over to Nora, or it could also be moving the Radiant TG to Camille, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it would be in a perfect world, it's Reforger first, right? So then you can see like what items you kind of end up with. I think most of the time, this is probably going to be move Nami items, just because I don't really think like the TG is anything to really write home about. If this TG were BT Starax, it's probably always move the TG, right?
Right.
But just because Radiant Shiv, Radiant LW is probably never gonna be going on. Like, I mean, it would go in Camille. Like, if you had a golden remover here, you'd probably put it on Camille, but it's probably not gonna be that high impact. Just because your Camille will probably die, with no defensive.
Okay.
Like if anything with a golden remover here, you'd probably move it to Callista and move the Callista items. But I don't really think you can make that work with the way things. Like I don't think you can downgrade Nico here to move items to Callista.
Okay.
Six Vanguard Deja Vu. I mean, you also Gunblade Callista here, which is probably a mistake. Who knows?
So that should have gone on Nora.
Nora, yeah, it's probably looking at damage throw. I would assume it's a mistake because Callista and Nora did basically same damage.
I see.
Bramble is fine. Okay, honestly, here I'd probably just reforge the Shiv off my Nora and move the Radiant TG. Because you have an adaptive. I mean, Titans doesn't really do anything, but Radiant adaptive is good enough for me.
Radiant TG on the Nora.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this game looks like it probably could have been a 5th if it wasn't so dizzy. Honestly, it probably is a top 4 if the 2-1 goes differently.
Yeah.
I think the 2-1 was like the easiest fix this game. And it kind of goes back to like the whole pre-planning thing where once you're thinking about your options and like in your head you probably have like some sort of ranking you're thinking about like you're leaning towards one way or another. And like watching it clearly looks like you're leaning towards taking what doesn't kill you. And then you should definitely have that idea in your head of like once you take what doesn't kill you, you need to be making 10 and playing a weak board. Right.
Right.
And so like if there's like 5 seconds left, you just need to be full selling. And if you actually have the luxury of like figuring out the perfect board, you can figure that out later. Like if you pick this with 20 seconds left and then you're figuring out like, oh, I want to keep Soraka pair or oh, I want to keep Jace pair or whatever it is, right? You can figure that out. But once you're clicking this with low time, and especially since it's like this is something that happens to you a lot, right? where you run out of time because you take too long on augment selection, it's like especially important for you that like you realize that like you know that about yourself. Oh, I take too long on augments, so I lose a lot of placements for free because I don't have the correct board in. And then you just need to think to yourself like, oh, 2-1, I don't want that to happen again, right? So I'm ready to start selling my board. Just because like obviously if you know that's a tendency of yours, you should just be prepared. Yeah, but
Okay.
I think this is really where it derails, and then like 2-6 again. Uh, like as usual, when you're kind of deciding between like leveling, sacking, whatever the case is, it should always just be like a gold calculation and think about whether you're willing to do it or not here. And then like the gold
Hmm.
calculation again is you get 4 gold for losing this round and 1 gold for winning this round. Um, and 3 gold is a huge deal on 2-6, right? So you should always be trying to lose this round. Without even
Yeah.
considering the fact that your augment, like your board is probably going to be pretty weak, and then you kind of just want to play for 7 loss here. Um, in an ideal world, where like what doesn't kill you is one of the augments where you want to play for like these long loss streaks, like 8 loss, 7 loss, and then kind of start winning from there. And it's the same with double down and most of the loss streak augments, where you kind of just want to be playing for like a long loss streak, and then at some point you either like the upgrades or items that make your board stronger, or your HP just starts getting to like 40, and then you decide you have to roll to kind of stabilize and not keep losing anymore. Um, but most of them are intervals of 4 as well. So most of them want to play for 8 loss, which 8 loss here would be 4-2. So it actually ends up just being like if you take double down, you want it's four losses to reach maximum. Same thing with what doesn't kill you, right? You just generally want to be playing for like 8 loss, um, and then try and start winning out from there. And that's I'm not exactly sure why the loss streak augments are like that, but that just tends to be how they are, right? What doesn't kill you, like you get your second component on 8 loss. Now you're up like 1,000,000 gold. You're up your full item, and then you kind of decide to start winning on 4-2 it, and that's kind of how you should be thinking about these augments. Um, Obviously
Okay.
this was a little bit. Maybe you are doing that, and this game's an outlier because obviously we were playing win streak. What
Yeah.
doesn't kill you? Um,
Yeah. That I don't normally do that.
but yeah, I think the main thing for you is definitely pre-planning because this is also like a very very reoccurring theme. Even from like our previous sessions, right? It's just we had
Yeah.
other stuff to talk about, but it seems like this has been plaguing you a lot, and I would just sort of try and, um, yeah. I mean, it's something you just have to pay attention to, um, knowing that it happens to you a lot, and kind of try and think about it, pre-plan it, and hopefully it gets better over time. Even so that even when you're playing like 10 seconds left on your augment selection, you still manage to get like your board in properly, or at least most of it in properly, and that you give up
Hmm.
less HP for no reason, less gold for no reason.
Okay. The other question I had was you were saying that you wouldn't hold the Namis on this 4-2 roll down. You would mainly be looking for Rise and Karma as outs then?
Yeah, I actually think you probably played this better than me because I probably wouldn't have held this mage out, but I actually think it ended up working out pretty well. Um, from like the result of the game. Maybe that's not a great way of categorizing how well it worked out, but I think the result ended
Hmm.
up being okay. Um, and the main reason is I would just be more interested in holding like Rise Karma, and then maybe backdoor Fairy out. Um, and just play like Milio primary, and then praying I get a Rage Blade by Raptors.
Yeah.
With like bow or rod off this carousel, and then finishing on Raptors. Um, but honestly, like the way it worked out, I think it looks fine to hold the Namis. I guess like the perfect computer way to play would be like you hold the Namis until you have something better to hold, right? Where since you don't really have Rise or Karma, obviously, like it makes total sense to hold the Namis, right? Because you know you're not going to be want to stuck on Seraphine carry. You're already playing mages. It actually makes a lot of sense. And I think it's maybe something that I would have missed if I was playing this game. But
Okay.
yeah, so I guess holding the Namis here makes sense, and then it also kind of slots in well with Chrono, where like you play the Vex. Um, like you could probably just play Preserver Nami here, Vex Zillion Recon pair, and then make it to 9 and either go into 4 Chrono, or you can get off the Nami and play something else on 9, right?
Right.
But yeah, I think you played this specific part of the roll down pretty well. Um,
Okay. Sounds good.